Hi there, my name's Shane Witters-Hicks, culinary specialist for Hungry Planet Foods, and today we're going to be making a really fun Persian recipe that's from Miyoko Schinner's new cookbook, the Vegan Meat Cookbook. She features a lot of wonderful plant-based proteins, and today we're going to be using Hungry Planet's plant-based beef. Lamb and beef are often used in Middle Eastern Persian cuisine, and so beef is an excellent choice. I'm really excited about this, especially because we're going to be using the eggplant not only as the ingredient, but also the serving vessel. It comes with this really beautiful skin on it, and so we're just to kind of give you the vision of this recipe, we're going to be slicing the eggplant in half, roasting it, scooping out the insides, using the insides in the recipe, and then stuffing it back into the eggplant and using that as a serving vessel. So if you've ever done like In-N-Out potatoes, it's like In-N-Out eggplant, Persian style. First, we're just gonna cut our eggplant in half. You can leave the stem on. That's a perfectly fine option because we're not actually gonna be eating it, we're just gonna be using it as a serving vessel. And in order to let some of the really tasty olive oil kind of seep in and help this cook through, we're just gonna give this a light scoring on top before we throw it into the oven. And so you can score it any direction you'd like, vertical, horizontal. I like to go what they call like a crosshatch pattern, this both diagonal directions, because it looks kind of pretty. And you don't need to go too deep. I'm only going about ½ an inch here. Just scoring it diagonally in both directions on both sides of the eggplant. And again, this is just gonna help the olive oil when we baste it a little bit. Let that olive oil kind of seep down into the eggplant and also speed up the cooking time. So now that I've given it a little bit of a cross-hatch scoring here, I'm just gonna go in with a pastry brush, really useful kitchen tool here, and paint the eggplant with some delicious olive oil. And you'll see that the olive oil, because we've scored it, it immediately starts to seep into the eggplant here. Okay, really easy. And now we're just going to pop this directly into a 350-degree oven. And that roasts for about 30 minutes. You might be wondering, Shane, why didn't you salt your eggplant? It'll help draw out the moisture. Well, you know, that is true, but we're actually going to be seasoning the inside of our eggplant when it comes out. So I didn't season it right now, just olive oil is totally fine. So here is our fully roasted eggplant. And you can see those beautiful incisions we made have opened up. The eggplant is all nice, soft, and tender, and it's ready to be used as an ingredient in our filling here. So before I jump into scooping out the filling, I'm actually just going to get some ingredients sauteing here. The star of this meal is the plant-based beef. Again, Miyoko does a great job featuring these just really hearty vegan meat proteins, and so our beef is going to go in with some onions, some red pepper, a lot of other delicious ingredients that I'll get into here. But first, we need to get some olive oil into a hot pan and let that heat up. About 2 tablespoons worth of olive oil is all you need. We're just gonna let that get nice and hot. We're gonna wait for the sizzle. So while that is heating up, I'm just going to take the same knife that I scored the eggplant with, and I'm gonna go around the outside here. All this does is help the insides of the eggplant come out really easily. Just kind of cutting right around the edge here. And I like to use a spoon. You could use a spatula, something just with a little sharp edge. You can use to scoop out the flesh of the eggplant. And you want to be pretty gentle here. You don't want to completely decimate this skin because, again, we're using the skin as a serving vessel, which makes this, this dish just really super unique. Eggplant is just a great ingredient to use as a vegetarian kind of showstopper centerpiece because you can always use that skin as a serving vessel later on. So there's one. Getting the second one out here. Beautiful. Okay, so as you can see, all the flesh has been taken out. The skin is ready to use as a serving vessel later on. We'll just set that aside. I can imagine we have a nice hot pan at this point. And as with a lot of recipes, what are we gonna start with? Building some flavor with onions. There's that sizzle I talked about. All right. So we're gonna start with some onions. And we're not trying to develop too much color in our filling here with any ingredient, really. We want to get a little bit of browning on the beef because, as we know, caramelization, that is flavor. We want to get a little bit of flavor on our Hungry Planet beef here. But most of the cooking is actually going to happen in the oven. We're going to stuff the eggplants and it's going to go back in the oven, so you don't have to worry about developing too much color on any of our ingredients here. So we're going to saute down those onions. We're also going to add some red bell pepper. And it's about a cup of each. A cup of onions, a cup of red bell pepper. Just lightly sweating those ingredients down. Sweating just means very low temperature cooking, no color again. And while those are sweating down, I'm going to continue preparing our eggplant, which again has just been nicely roasted with olive oil. And I'm just going to give this a nice rough chop. Eggplant and beef are a very nice flavor pairing. And they work really well with some warming spices, which are very traditional in Persian cuisine. If you've ever heard of the spice mix called Ras el Hanout, we're just going to be doing a similar spice mix to that. It's kind of a combination of warm and spicy and savory with kind of those spices you'd associate with sweeter things like cinnamon and allspice. So we're going to be just adding our beef here in just a moment. That's probably good. You're waiting for your onions really to just get translucent, and that's the key. That's kind of your signal that they're ready for other ingredients. So I'm gonna go in with our Hungry Planet plant-based beef here, just crumbling that up into the pan. Getting it all kind of the same size as the rest of the ingredients. So this Hungry Planet plant-based beef, one of the reasons I love cooking with it is because it's quite guilt-free compared to conventional meats. You have 78% less fat and 41% fewer calories in this. No saturated fat, which is just amazing. So you can cook with it just like you would conventional beef in pretty much any recipe you can think of. All right, time for the eggplant. A lot of eggplant here. It's about equal parts beef and eggplant in this mixture. And now for the seasonings. We're gonna go in with some soy sauce. If you want that to be gluten-free, you can use a gluten-free tamari. You could also use Bragg's liquid aminos. All of those are great options. But you're just gonna add some salt and some flavor. We're gonna add a couple cloves of chopped garlic. And finally, those spices that I mentioned. So this is kind of a blend of those savory and sweet spices. Hot smoked paprika, cumin, allspice, ginger, ground cinnamon, black pepper. A really wonderful Persian blend of spices here. We're just blooming those spices in the oil, really developing some nice flavor here. And heating it through. Again, most of the cooking is going to be happening in the oven. Okay, so now that we have a homogeneous mixture that has been mostly cooked down, I'm going to take about 2/3 of our toasted chopped walnuts, add those to the pan, and not only do those add a really nice nutty flavor, they also add some great texture to the mixture here. And the remaining 1/3 of walnuts, that's going to be used for garnish. Got to have a little bit of garnish, a little bit of crunch in my opinion. Always try to go for that textural contrast. This is a pretty soft dish, and so to have a little kind of hard crunch is just going to be lovely when you're eating it. Beautiful. That's what we want to see here. We just have a nice homogeneous mixture of our beef, our eggplant, our vegetables, our spices. I'm getting some really warming kind of sweet savory notes going on. I wish you could smell this right now. And now that we have our cooked mixture here ready to stuff into the eggplant, we're just going to bring that front and center. Again, we're using our eggplant skins as the serving vessel. So I'm going to take this mixture and we're going to spoon it right into, a generous amount right into the skin. I like to develop a little bit of a mound. We like seeing height on a plate, and so I always try to get a little bit of height here. And it's okay if it's messy. It doesn't need to look perfect, because this is just going to go into the oven when you're plating up. That's when you make it look pretty. Nobody will ever even notice it was messy at the beginning. So we've stuffed our eggplant with that beautiful eggplant and beef Persian filling, and it's now going to go back into the oven at 350 degrees, again for about 30 minutes, and that's when the whole thing is going to come together. A lot of that moisture is going to evaporate, the flavors are going to concentrate, and it's going to be nice, hot, steamy, ready for serving and garnishing. After about 30 minutes, you should have eggplant that is fully cooked, fully ready to go, and we're just going to garnish this, add a little bit of color here with some fresh parsley. We eat with our eyes first, so you want to make the plate look nice and pretty. Just scatter that parsley around. And lastly, add a nice crunch factor to the dish with some of those toasted chopped walnuts. Again, there's walnuts already in this dish, and we're just accentuating that, telling the eater that there are walnuts in by adding some right to the top, also adding a nice crunch factor. And there you have it, Miyoko Schinner's Persian eggplant stuffed with spiced beef and walnuts. And this is from her new cookbook, the Vegan Meat Cookbook, featuring Hungry Planet plant-based beef. We are so grateful to be in such delicious company with other brands that are mission-driven, that prioritize compassion, health, and the planet. And if you make any of Hungry Planet's recipes in the future, feel free to tag us on social media at Hungry Planet Foods. Again, I'm Shane Witters-Hicks. I'm really excited to eat this. It smells amazing. I wish you could be here. Make this right now.